unions, 5 teacher unions that we have, including our internal unions in the department, Association of School Governing Bodies, professional bodies, all our experts, NGOs, partners, leaders in our oversight structures of Parliament, our MECs, as well as our celebrities for today and their parents, the class of 2024. It is an immense honor and privilege for me to present on behalf of an amazing team in the basic education sector, which means 10 education departments, 9 plus 1, the technical report for the class of 2024. I also want to take this opportunity to thank all the parents, all the teachers, all the school management teams, all the school principals, all the officials from district, provincial, up to national level, all the NGOs and partners who supported the class of 2024. In the same vein, I want to acknowledge the forefathers and mothers of our democracy who have laid a solid foundation for our system. I want to isolate Professor Bengu, who we laid to rest a few days ago, Professor Chabani Manganye. I also want to acknowledge Professor Kada Asmal, the late Professor Kada Asmal, acknowledge and appreciate Mr. Tamim Seleku, acknowledge Mr. Duncan Handel, acknowledge also Minister Naledi Pando, Minister Motshekga, as well as Mr. Bobby O'Brien, and all other HODs in provincial education departments and officials, school principals, SMT members, teachers who retired but laid a solid foundation for our sector. I'm quickly going to go through the presentation, which is part of our technical report. I'm a teacher by profession, so using the chalkboard of the 21st century, I'm trying to connect to check whether the screen is moving with me. It takes a while. The first slide is about our mantra, the National Development Plan, articulating clearly what we are expected to do, that we contribute to an education and training system of the highest quality, and leading to significantly improved learning outcomes. Not just improved, significantly improved learning outcomes. And I hope the class of 2024 is going to bring us to that point in reminding us about our duty of supporting every learner to go through a system that leads to significantly improving learning outcomes. And of course, the last important bit on this slide is to make sure that our performance in international and regional tests are comparable to countries of similar level of development as well as access. The strategic direction really highlights our international obligations, our continental and regional obligations, as well as our domestic obligations, including the State of the Nation address delivered by our President every year. We are a growing sector. We are now 24,000 schools, 850, and of course 10 education departments, as I referred to earlier on. And this includes both independent schools and public schools. Our learner numbers stand at 13.5 million. They've been growing from 12 million learners from 2020 to now 13.5 million learners. Our educators, both public and private, stand at 467,000. And we can see the official languages that we offer in our country, including South African Sign Language. And I'm pleased that even this speech, we offer it in South African Sign Language as part of reaching out to the diverse population of our country. Social justice principles are important, not only for basic education, but for measuring performance in social services across the globe. And we use it in South Africa to gauge our performance. And out of the 6 social justice principles, we've been doing exceptionally well in 4. And we're beginning to make an indelible mark in the other 2, which is efficiency and quality. Let me just remind us that when we talk about efficiency, is the time it takes for a learner to get into the system and complete. Quality, we base it on quality of learning outcomes in terms of grade 12. We look at admission to bachelor studies. We also look at distinctions. We look at performance between 80 and 100%. That's how we've raised the bar over the years, sorry. The unique context of this class. In 2013, this class was in grade 1. And therefore, in 2012, they were in grade R. And they went through grade R. And of course, in 2020, they were in grade 8, the year of COVID. So they were not spared in terms of the disruptions of COVID. And in 2021, they were in grade 9, 2022, grade 10. They have relatively had a smooth journey of their FET phase from grade 10 to grade 12 compared to previous classes. And I agree with experts who are saying we must be very careful when we compare this class with previous classes, because it is not exactly the same experience as I've just tried to illustrate. And of course, they were in grade 12 in 2024. This is a very interesting slide to many South Africans who are interested in our throughput. And may I humbly just remind that pass rate is not the same as throughput. A pass rate is the number of learners who wrote the exams divided by the number of learners who passed. Then you get a pass rate. Throughput rate is the number of learners who enter the system as against the number of learners who exit the system. It's called throughput. Our throughput rate stands at 64%. The experts are saying it's a healthy performance. Of all middle-income countries are expected to be around 60% or so. South Africa is at 64%. We're looking to improve our throughput rate even further, but a pass rate is something else. And we will appreciate that there is a geometric improvement in our throughput rate, right from grade 1. I like what Professor Jonathan Jansen used to remind us about, to say 1.2 million learners enter the system. And you would say, but when you come to grade 12, those who go through grade 12 are less than half the number that started in grade 1. I must also caution that education, you don't always have a smooth flow from grade 1, the same number up to the end. And I see Chair of Portfolio Committee for Health is here, my leader, and I like using the analogy from the medical field, that when people get admitted in a hospital, 200 of them, because of influenza or something, if 100 of them are released, it doesn't mean the other 100 have died. It could mean that the other 100, some of them are at different stages of recuperation. And there could be maybe some of them who died, but it does not necessarily mean that all 100 of them have died. The same applies to education. Our major problem in basic education is not even dropout rate. I've said this many times, and I'm going to say it for as long as I'm given the opportunity to address these matters. Our major problem is the failure and repetition rate. It's just too high compared to what other countries are performing. So we've got a large number of our learners who have been repeating in the system, and ever since we brought in the policy on progression, it has improved even the throughput rate. You can see up to even grade 10, it is still 1 million, when in the past the number would reduce drastically even before grade 10. And you can see in grade 10, the number is even more than the number that you see in grade 9. It's because you've got about 110 more learners in grade 10, which demonstrates the point that I've just made. High failure rate, high repetition rate because of competition. Of course, schools are also not comfortable in allowing learners to move to the next grade if there are no guarantees that those learners are going to afford them the passes that they are looking forward to. We are monitoring gatekeeping. We are monitoring retaining learners simply because people want to look good from a competition point of view. Well, the enrollment is as indicated there, but what is significant is that the number of learners who sit for the final year exams has been improving over the years. We've seen 15% of learners who wouldn't sit for the exam since 2017, and that number has been going down. It went up only, as you can see, in 2019, and then, in fact, it went up in 2018 and 2019, and it started going down drastically. 2024 is the lowest. And as you can see, only 2.63% of learners did not sit for exams. This includes learners who might have not written a paper or 2 papers which could constitute just a subject, and they might have written the other 6 but left only with 1 subject, or written the 7 but left only with 1 paper. So the 2.63% includes those learners as well. So young people would be able to write in these numbers if they are confident that there is a chance for them to succeed. And that is really based on the extent to which we teach them, we make sure that we create an enabling environment for them to learn, but we support them as parents throughout the system. More and more of them will have the courage to go and write. These are the numbers of the enrollment. We've seen a slight increase from 2023 to 2024, which I'll come back to later. As we can see, the numbers have slightly gone up. Full-time candidates, part-time candidates, the numbers have gone down slightly. And the cause for this is that as results improve, the number of learners who go back to improve their performance in subjects where they did not perform well in reduces. And that's why the number of part-time candidates have reduced. Well, we then reflect on the numbers in terms of provinces. We can see that the enrollment has gone down, except for in 3 provinces. And the decline is insignificant, very small. It's not even worth talking about. But overall, where the increases have happened, we've got 14,121 more learners than last year who wrote for 2024. That's full-time candidates. Part-time candidates, there's reduction across the board. And I've attempted to explain this. What is interesting is that there are only 2 provinces that seem to have experienced an increase. It's Free State and Mpumalanga. It's a very interesting development, but these are the figures that we have here. Enrollment by gender, well, we can see that our female learners are more than our male learners, which is good. The split is healthy, it's fine. That's what you should expect in any system, in a system that's maturing. That's what Dr. Sishi would have said. A maturing system, you see very good, healthy signs. Enrollment per subjects, we are concerned about BCM subjects. BCM subjects are business studies, accounting, and economics. We equally concerned about the enrollment in mathematics. When we briefed the president yesterday, he raised a red flag around this, and he gave us very clear instructions as to what is it that we need to do to make sure that we grow these numbers in the subjects that are experiencing a geometric decline. But you can see that, I mean, look at mathematics, the decline is 12,000, the highest. But look at the increase in mathematical literacy. And I'm sure the results of 2024 will demonstrate that even learners who do mathematical literacy should be doing maths. And the problem is that maybe we've not done enough to ensure that these young people garner enough courage to do mathematics than taking an easier option to mathematical literacy. We do also have technical maths now. The numbers are still very low there as well. But we want to see the picture changing quite drastically here. Technical subjects. Another important area when we talk about 3 streams in the system is the academic pathway, vocational pathway. When we talk about vocational pathway, is based on the subjects. The biggest problem in the basic education in terms of enrollment is getting more learners offering technical, vocational subjects as well as technical occupational subjects, which is the 3rd stream that we are bringing in later on. And the president also gave us a very clear instruction here, Dr. Sishi, to say we need to put our heads together, look at what is happening in TVET colleges, and look at how we can synergize the entire education and training system to make sure that we account at least for technical, vocational, and technical occupational stream 60 to 70%, Dr. Rakumes. And only 30 to 40% must go towards streams that will make them doctors, make them lawyers. We need more plumbers. We need more electricians to come and create jobs. Our labor market seems to be saturated. So as a country, this is the direction that we should go. And I want to urge even our public representatives, I see our MECs are here, our chairs of oversight structures. It should be the gospel that we spread everywhere in our social gatherings, in our family meetings, to say, do you know that a plumber or an electrician can end up any more than a medical doctor? Which is what we should be really encouraging in our society. So these are the technical subjects. South African Sign Language, we've seen some growth from 129 learners offering this subject to 175. We want to see more of them as part of social cohesion in our country. Umalusi reminded us, and they do that every time when we appear for standardization, to put the requisite resources in place to provide support to these learners and to make sure that schools are able to offer this subject appropriately to learners. Progress learners. And when I come to this one, I like saying there is no dustbin for human beings in basic education. Umuntu akalahlwa. Even those that have given up on themselves, we instill hope and confidence, and we get them to perform. So the numbers are steady. This year is 56,536, an increase of about 1,593. Some drops in the provinces that are indicated in red, KZN, and you see Mpumalanga and Northwest. That's where some of the drops are experienced there. Full-time enrollment by age. Learners in our schooling system enroll or they get admitted at age 6 turning 7. Age 6 turning 7. They complete grade 12 when they turn 18 years in the system. And we can see that even if we compare 2023 and 2024, learners who are expected to be 18 years old, I mean, you can see the bar is the tallest among all these bars. And what is good, there's been a gradual reduction, Professor Balin, from underage learners. The experts, the psychologists and social workers discourage learners getting into the schooling system too early because at times it might have undesirable consequences. So I now move to part-time. You can see part-time also. What is quite interesting because of early admission into the schooling system, they finish too early and they end up into finishing as part-time candidates. You can see the numbers of 18, 19 there, and would want to move this to the right and appropriate ages as we move to the right. Full-time enrollment by age and gender, and as we can see, the female learners seem to be doing well in the early ages up to the appropriate age. Boys seem to pick up later in their development, which doesn't spell, a very good picture for the system. As I've said before, which I'll continue to say, we need to pay special attention to the girl learner. I mean to the boy learner rather, not the girl learner. Part-time enrollment by age, as we can see here, the picture, it's essentially the same as in full-time candidates. Learners with special education needs, a slight reduction in the Free State, KwaZulu-Natal, and Northern Cape, but overall an increase of about 1,000. There's a gradual increase in the enrollment there and the learners who write as learners with special education needs. Learners with special education needs, barriers to learning. The system has got to cater for these learners and cater for different barriers. And it's important for us to note that it is possible for a learner to be carrying multiple barriers to learning. A learner being deaf, a learner being blind, and other barriers to learning. So it's not only one barrier per learner. So the real situation or real life, you do have multiple barriers that some of the learners are carrying. And some of them are here as our bright sparks, as our creme de la creme. They can't get, if you get, you can't buy. So, accommodation and concession, and I move quickly to the appropriate year. In accommodation and concession, it's where we prepare and support these learners so that these barriers to learning don't make it difficult for them to perform. They perform the same, if not better, than learners who do not experience these barriers. And our system do make provision for this. You can see the numbers have increased. Barriers to learning are about 8,000, and accommodation and concession, it's about 10,000, as we can see. Social grants, full-time learners, we have seen a slight increase there from 562,000 to 572,000. The government, the state creating a safety net for the most vulnerable in society. We've seen some increase in those provinces that are indicated in red, but essentially 572, which accounts almost for 70% of the total number of learners in the system. Social grants enrollment by grant type, the biggest enrollment is in child support grant, which is the biggest there. But as I've said earlier on, the decreases are in those provinces that we pointed out earlier on. The class of 2024, they are here. They received extraordinary learner support program, unprecedented learner support program. They benefited from what was developed from those who went to school in grade 12 at the height of COVID-19 in 2020, 2021, 2022, and of course, the class of 2023, where we continue to plug on the gaps that they experience as a result of the disruptions during COVID. There's been an increase in the number of learners who benefited from extra tuition. Extra support is no longer for what used to be called dysfunctional schools, which in the diagnostic report of the National Planning Commission indicated 80% of our schools used to be dysfunctional. It's the other way around now. 80 and even more % of our schools are now functional. And therefore, we also need support to even former Model C schools, because the learner profile has changed there. But the problem of poverty is no longer affecting only previously disadvantaged. It also affects the previously advantaged, as you can see from the profile of our learners. Number of subjects that are involved, it used to be your gateway subjects, even smaller subjects are now receiving attention. The intensity of monitoring, what gets planned, executed, and monitored gets done. We've also improved in our evidence-based approach the use of data to plan, the use of data to monitor trends, but the use of data to reflect back to the system to bring about improvements. It's been improving from year to year. I need to rush. We're only providing some of the figures in case you don't believe our story, our narrative. We give you the figures. Maybe the figures will make more sense to you to look at what I refer to. And we do not include initiatives that are coming from schools. We only include initiatives that are provincially driven and district driven. Schools have got their own initiative. You can go to any part of South Africa. On Saturday, you'll find our learners going to school. During school holidays, our learners are going to school. Teachers are working flat out. We also just thought that we must acknowledge and appreciate our fallen heroes, our national, priceless, precious assets, men and women who made an enormous contribution in the administration of the exams in terms of marking. We lost 4 of them. These are not just ordinary teachers. These are men and women who had acquired experience over the years. They had irreplaceable skills that they contributed to the system. And we thought that we could share this also in this important event. And we include all 4 of them. And everything that we do on a daily basis, we do it as part of contributing in paying tribute to these wonderful men and women who worked even when it was difficult to do so in 2020 during the year of COVID. But they passed on in the past year. In 2024, they tragically demised due to or owing to a number of factors that we wouldn't have time to share with the public and the audience now. And quickly about some of the challenges and context, we had to deal with weather. We now have to factor weather in our planning, adverse inclement weather, heavy rain, storms, heat wave, even during marking. And I'm reliably informed that the environmental experts have now announced that 2024 was the hottest year in 30 years. And the caution is that we're likely to experience even more. Water remains a challenge in many parts of our country. Schools with waterborne facilities are struggling to run. Even during marking and during exams, we experience this. Electricity, I think Minister Ramokgopa seems to have turned the corner, although some of us don't believe. But I think I'm one of those who think that he's really turned the corner. And people that I work with seem to attest to that as well. We do experience some outages there and there. It's not smooth sailing all the time. But water provision remains a problem. Marker well-being, food handling. We had to run this administration within the context of foodborne diseases. We had to organize big workshops to prepare and make sure that we put mechanisms in place and we don't contribute to the challenge that the country was faced with. And thanks to the men and women who are part of this audience who went flat out to make sure that the system runs as expected. This is the layout of the project of the administration of the exams, people who built this, Dr. Sishi and others. And I was saying to the president yesterday, we are the second biggest project to national elections. The difference between us and national elections is that exams takes place over 27 days every day. Marking takes place, which is additional to 27 days, for 12 to 15 days. And We deliver this to different parts of the country, and we do it every year. National elections take place only after 5 years, and the president was at awe. This is the magnitude and the complexity of the project, and I salute men and women in the basic education sector who run this huge enterprise under the leadership of Dr. Rufus Polia and heads of exams in the 9 provinces of our country, supported by all of us in the sector. These are the numbers which are just adding to the picture that I've explained. Standardization. This is the journey of standardization. I can see the CEO is offering some smiles there. It was a tough year, Professor Balim, of standardization. In the last meeting, Professor Balim said he's never seen me animated as I did in the last standardization meeting. And I would plead guilty, Professor Balim, if you say to me it's because we became too close to this class of 2024, to the extent that we may be overprotective to them. But standardization is important for the health of the system, to bring that balance. At times, papers can become too difficult. Sometimes they become too easy. So that's the reality. It's part of teaching, moderation. That's what standardization is about. We sometimes don't like the outcomes, but we respect them because the final decision is of the quality assurer. It's important for our democracy, consistent with our Chapter 9 institutions. So you can see that out of 68 subjects, 53 were accepted on raw, which accounts for 78%, 13 adjusted downwards, and that's where we were fighting and crying. 2 only for upward adjustment, comparable to 2013. If you compare, in terms of downward adjustment, 2013 had the highest number, but if you juxtapose it with upward adjustment, we still believe that 2024 was a bit hard, Dr. Rakomitz, but we accept the outcomes. Now the results, as you can see, Dr. Polia was saying to me, if you take a longitudinal look from 1970 to 2024, he says in 1970, you had 43,000 learners who passed in the system. You have to multiply that by 14. It will get you close to what you might get this evening from the minister. You can see where the bar is. Well, we have a 4-quadrant qualification. Our qualification is inclusive. We cater for those who want to further their studies in bachelors at university. We also cater for those who want to pursue diploma studies. We also cater for those who want to do higher certificate. But we also cater for those who just want to be good citizens and have a national senior certificate. Because virtually everywhere you go, you'd be asked about 2 important documents. Do you have a South African ID? And do you have a matric certificate? It's completely unfair to want to suggest that we pitch the level the same as people who want to do different things. Our qualification is diverse. It caters for all. It's not meant for universities only. Universities are catered for, but as I've demonstrated, we cater for all. That's the nature of the qualification. In terms of what you are likely to hear, you can see that it's somewhat around there. But I'm sure you can make your own guess where we're likely to be. I was speaking to the CEO of IEB. She says the outcomes are quite good. CEO, I haven't even checked the outcomes of Standard. I know that you announced from 10 o'clock up to about 1 o'clock. They are just celebrating. I'm waiting with bated breath whether we're going to join them in that celebration. But patience is virtue. We are only left with a few minutes and a few hours from now. And I'm going to run quickly. As you can see, the performance of the class, the minister will cover that. I did indicate the numbers eventually were 705,291. The performance of the class of 2023, I should be going to 2024. In terms of the fee status, I think you're starting to get the results now. No fee paying schools, you can see that we improved to 85.8%, fee paying 90.3%, and independent schools 91.9%. There are 27,000 learners, Dr. Polia, from independent schools who are writing exams from the Department of Basic Education. And from IEB and Sakai, you've got about 20,000. In basic education, independent schools write with us, 27,000. So you can see that the gap is closing there, which is quite interesting. I'm sure I've shared a little bit with you. So you're looking forward to what the minister is going to share more. Gender, the picture is more or less the same. Bachelor pass trends, percentage, you can see we've been going up. And in fact, if I go back a little bit, you can see that our results have been going up. From 2021, we've been experiencing an upward trajectory, uninterrupted. This is the legacy that we have left in the system. And I'm hoping that we'll maintain this. They say the higher you go, it's not only geography, the more difficult it becomes. Even in aviation, as the aircraft goes higher, the intensity of the force of gravity becomes heavier. The same applies to our sector as well. So I'm going to move faster as I move towards conclusion. These are the numbers. They've been growing. As I've indicated, from 2021, we've been experiencing a geometric increase or improvement over the years. And you can see that bachelor passes, even if you don't know the numbers, you know who stands where. KZN contributes close to 25% of the total number of learners in the system. And then it's followed by Gauteng, and you can see there how they follow each other. The logic seems to follow. Percentages, this is what is surprising. It does appear that they don't only assert their dominance in numbers, but also in percentages. KZN and Gauteng seem to be leading and followed in that way by the rest of the other provinces. Now, my friends who always raise the issue of 30%, let's look at the numbers. Professor Balim says the debate around 30% generates more heat than light. But I think I still want to entertain our friends and just invite them to look at numbers. You'd look at the National Senior Certificate, which is where the minimum of 30% obtains. And of course, home language is at 40%. And then if you look at that, the number tells you it's 121. The percentage of that is the what you see, the 0.017. It really generates more heat than light. Let's combine it with the next one, higher certificate. It takes you to about between 12 and 13%. So almost 88% of learners who go through the system are going through a path that is much higher than what people are even concerned about. If numbers are not going to persuade people, and as they say, I see Professor Jita in the midst, they say numbers do not lie. And if you don't manipulate them, the numbers will just tell it as it is. Bachelors and diplomas, you can see there's been a growth there. In terms of fee paying, 47.8 in bachelors. Independent schools, you can see there's also a growth there of 54.9. And no fee, you can see, I'm sorry, I'm looking at 2023, this should be 2024. And as you can see, these are the numbers that are growing there. In your bachelors, both in fee-paying, independent schools, no fee-paying schools. So there is that growth. NSC, performance by qualification type, we've just blocked the bachelors and the rest we've left for people to be able to look at that. And then bachelor achievements by gender. Girl learners are doing exceptionally well, MEC Dlamini, compared to boy learners, when it comes to both bachelors and distinctions in areas of quality. Number of schools within different pass rate categories. I want to pay attention or draw your attention to schools that are getting 80 to 100%. The number increased from 4,493 in 2023 to 5,387. You can see the increase between those 2 years and increase across provinces. A phenomenal improvement there. Performance of progress learners candidates, we can see there's been an improvement. That improvement is led by Free State, as we can see, and then the rest of the other provinces. And here is a simple logic. The extent to which any province is able to support an improved performance of progress learners, that then determines how far that province can go. The same applies to a school. It applies also in economics. Development is predicated on the extent to which those who are most vulnerable and who constitute the safety net are able to become economically active and begin to contribute to the economy of the country. Performance of progress learners by achievement and qualification, 4,071 progress learners have achieved with bachelors. Learners who ordinarily could have been kept in the system, some of them could have dropped out, they now contribute 4,000 to the number of bachelors that we have in the system. And this is what I've just covered to show that Progress Learners Free State is leading, and it's followed there by Mpumalanga. MEC Dlamini will be happy to learn that, and then KZN and the rest of the other provinces. School performance by quintile. These are just a number of learners who performed. I want to pay attention at exactly 100%. You can see that the number has grown from 674 in 2023 to 902. A phenomenal growth. Learners' performance by quintile in 2023 compared to 2024, 80% to those who get 80% to 100% average pass learners. The number growing from 559,772 to 566,162 in 2024. Now, this is the favorite slide of the president. He calls it a silent revolution. We're indicating progress in terms of bachelor's, diploma, and higher certificate. You can see we're steering away from this thing of 30%, and we're looking for quality. Our results are analyzed mainly based on quality. And the bottom part of this is the most interesting. Quintile 1 to 3, the number increasing from 2023 from 174,676, which accounted for 65.3%, to 214,000, which now accounts for 67.1% rather, sorry. As opposed to Quintile 4, which has grown from 92,000 in 2023 to now 104,096, which accounts for 32.9%. The gap closing between Quintile 1 to 3 and Quintile 4 schools. Overall achievement by age, the picture looks good. There's a notion of saying catch them young. The younger they are in the system, the better they perform. And the problem then begins from 19 years and going down. And the older they become, the more serious they start paying attention to the business of learning as well as you move to older ages. Overall achievement, we're just comparing 2023 and 2024. We've never appeared this healthy in our history in education. 2024 showing an improvement across the ages, all round. It has never been at this performance in the history of our education. Quite very interesting there. Overall achievement by gender, what is disappointing is that the younger ages do not show a good performance of girl learners, but as they become more matured, then they start improving and performing better than boys. But in the younger ages, as you can see, and somebody was saying it's because of household chores. Our societies have not transformed. Girl learners are confined to household chores when boy learners are given the leverage to pay attention to their studies. So we really need to change our society. And we're putting this in exact ages, and we're comparing different ages. 2024 stands head and shoulder above all other ages. Look at age 15. Look at age 16. Age 16 is even the highest. And as you go up like that, and of course, as I said, from about 19, then the performance starts going down. And as they get older, then it picks up again. The inclusive basket, and I'm going to move over. Accounting, you can see, is led by Free State, followed by Limpopo. Mathematics is led by Western Cape achievements. Western Cape is leading there. And of course, followed by Northwest. Physical science led by Western Cape. Western Cape is leading there. Technical mathematics led by Free State. Now, this is very interesting. Maths participation rate is led by Limpopo. The actuarial scientists, the majority of them, the pilots, the maths-related subject, demanding subjects, Limpopo seems to be doing well. And guess what? Followed by Eastern Cape. Eastern Cape participation rate looks very good. HOD, Masdorp. If we can just push achievement, the same applies to Limpopo. These are the bachelors. Distinctions, KZN, head and shoulder above all other provinces there. You can see that the kingdom is asserting its dominance, as you can see there. Throughput rate, this is very important, and we calculate throughput rate from grade 10 to grade 12. And guess who's leading there? Western Cape. And you can see that Western Cape, I think, is followed by Eastern Cape. There are good things that come from all these provinces. There's a place for everyone of us in the sun. And this is how South African Sign Language has performed 89%. The technical subjects, there is no reason for this low enrollment. We need to be enrolling more learners. All technical subjects perform at 90% and above. All of them, without exception, including even those that dropped slightly, such as electronics. They perform at 90% and above. Sorry, I jumped the other slides. Home languages seem to be doing well. First additional languages, Afrikaans, the Sepedi, Sesotho, and Isiswati dropped a little bit, but they are all above the 90s. Some selected subjects, only physical science dropped there. So it tells you that we really need to pay attention to maths and science. We still need to do a lot there. And again, as I've said, technical subjects, overall, they are doing exceptionally well, except for electronics, as you can see. District performance. Out of 75 districts, last year we had only 55 districts out of 75 which performed at 80% and above. 2024, the number increased to 73 districts. Only 2 districts performed below 80%. It has never been like this in our lifetime. I think we are the first generation to experience this. There are only 2 districts and they are at 78, as you can see. Top 10 districts, it has never been like this. All districts except one perform at 90% and above. District number 1 is at 97%. And again, it has never been like this. Now, the president directed that we consider changing this from saying bottom 10 district. I said, but President, we've got 75. If out of 75 you are in the last 10, or maybe we must not call it bottom, we must say last 10. It's the first time that we have provinces in the 80s, in the bottom 10 districts. 8 out of 10, they are in the 80s, as you can see. Only 2 at 78 are in the bottom 10. Learners with special education needs, we've seen a phenomenal improvement there. As you can see, we've improved, is it 91? I'm struggling to see these numbers now. Dr. Polia? Oh, from 86.6, we are now at 89.1. Am I right? 89.1. A phenomenal improvement of learners with special education needs. Distinctions, again, KZN, breaking down into provinces. I think the story is the same. KZN is leading there. Subjects with distinctions, only physical science dropped. Progress learners, 22 of these learners, progress learners got distinctions in maths, 0.8 got distinctions in physical science. These are learners who could have been retained or who could have even dropped out of the system. Social grants, the class of 2024 improved from 81.26% to 86.05%. Remember, I said 70% of these learners are beneficiaries of social grants. Now, this is very important, and we call it active and inactive. Those who are active at the year of grade 12, those who are active are still benefiting from the grant. And you can only benefit from the grant if you are 17 years and younger. Let's look at the improvement of those who are active. We've now, those who are active stand at 92.5%. And those who are no longer receiving this grant because they are 18 years, the majority in the system would be 18 years. So the grant, you cease to benefit from the grant when you reach the age of 18 and above. They perform at 83.6. There's a case to be made with government, and welcome, Chair of the NECT. You can see learners who continue to receive the grant, they perform far much better than those who are no longer receiving it. 92.5 compared to 83.6%. I'm almost done. Of course, by gender, the boy learners in terms of social grants do slightly better than girl learners. Social grant by qualification type, I mean, look at those with achievement to study bachelor studies. 247,000 of them will be able to get admission to do bachelor studies there. Correctional services, improvement from 93.2 to 96.2. There'll be celebrations, parties, the Department of Justice and Correctional Services, I'm sure they'll be working together. The improvement of 3% there, they usually celebrate these results. That is full-time candidates. Part-time candidates, the performance dropped from 24.4, they are not doing well, to 24%. Performance in selected part-time subjects, the drop in life orientation, and I want to look at the CEO, look at life orientation. And when I presented to my principal, they said it can't be. I said, no, this is the effect of the decisions of standardization. It can't be that these learners have done so well in so many subjects and suddenly they drop in life orientation. But those are the sweet and sour tastes of standardization. We accept both of them. And of course, drop in mathematics as well. And the rest is measuring ourselves in terms of the social justice principle. The system is improving. It looks healthier in terms of access. It looks healthier in terms of redress, healthier in terms of equity. We look at gender only. If you factor in geography, the picture will even look better, urban versus rural. I mean, schools in the rural areas are hitting 100% pass rate, and many of the learners that are here come from those schools. In terms of quality, the picture looks great. Efficiency, the time it takes for learners to enter the system and exit, the picture looks good as well. As you can see, inclusivity, learners with special needs are looking good. If this is anything to go by, for anyone who would want to leave the system and go and look for a new job, this is the right time. I'm not encouraging people to do that. The chairperson of the NECT, all institutions and organizations that he left with, he left an impeccable footprint of performance. The system looks quite healthy, and I think we can take this forward as we get closer to 2030. Thank you very much for indulging.
Let's give our Director General another round of applause. That was certainly a comprehensive account of a complex system, and I think the Director General has given us much information to reflect on and ponder. And from the information provided, even though the Director General was not able to get to those critical points, but I think all indications are that the class of 2024 has done us proud. So it's just another 60 more minutes to go, and you will have the full story, and the celebration can then begin. During our technical briefing, we've had a number of our special guests joining us. Let me welcome you, and I hope you are comfortable, and we will soon be switching over to the Ministerial live broadcast. But in terms of the clock, we have 14 minutes to go before we give you a short little break so that you can just stretch, visit the restrooms, and come back so that we could set up the auditorium for the live broadcast. So in that time, the Director General has consented to take a few questions, or possibly you may want to make some comments in the time that we have available. We do have a few roving mics, so if you would just raise your hand and indicate that you want to make a comment or you have a question, and we'll get a mic to you so that you now have an opportunity to comment. And remember, these results do not belong to the Department of Basic Education. These are the results of us as a country, as a nation, and they must reflect what is important, and they must serve as that important yardstick of where we're going to as a country. And therefore, your inputs in terms of what has been presented would guide, would assist the Department of Basic Education in terms of what are some of the priorities that we need to be looking at in 2025 and beyond. So we have some time for questions. I'm looking for hands, and please raise your hand so that we can get a mic to you, and our Director General, together with his team that are on standby, will certainly be able to respond to your questions. Doesn't look like there are any hands. Does this mean that our DG is not only a good director, but is also a good educator, and he's done extremely well in articulating a very complex presentation? I know it has been long, but you would agree with me that it was necessary so that we give you the full story, and you're going to have lots to mull over this evening and in the days to come. I see one brave young gentleman, and that looks like the CEO of the NECT, Professor Godwin. And let's get a mic to him. And let's hope, Professor, that this would be a standard grade question and not a higher grade, so that... Are we getting a mic to...
Hello?
Professor? Okay, we may have to get you to the stage so that I'm not sure.
Doc, I think the mic is here. Aye. On your left.
Oh, here's a mic here.
Doc. Okay.
Yeah, it's on. Chair, thank you very much. In the absence of higher grade questions, I thought I could, is there a middle grade question? On a serious note, I think if there is nothing to negative or questions to ask, it's also appropriate to meet out commendations. I mean, the DG has identified a number of areas that indicators that actually show us that the system has improved and has continued to improve. There are two big observations I make, which I think are positive, and I think we have to be happy about. One is the system that has actually matured and stabilized, over the years. And I think that has to be celebrated. The second quite important one, and one which, by the way, may require us that we find ways of digging even further, it's the distribution of opportunities across the provinces and across the districts. I think that's very important. There are still opportunities to increase those distribution of opportunities, such as the participation in mathematics across the provinces, for instance. But generally, I think the results do show us that opportunities for success, for doing well, and for contentment of these young people into the future are starting to be distributed across the country. So big, hands of applause to the DG and his team. Thank you very much on behalf of the country.
Professor Godwin Khoza, two important observations and comments, certainly applauding the sector for where we are, and a maturing system, indeed a very positive note. Are there any other hands?
Yes, at the back of the room, on your left-hand side, to the back of the room.
Yes, Doc, here. At the back here. Okay, Doc. I think I must start by commending the DG and the whole DBE team. I think we are seeing quite positive indicators, and this is the real redress. However, it goes without saying that as we celebrate those who are achieving this NSC at a higher note, we must not forget those who can make it at this current time. DG, I'm concerned. I've been in the space of second chance education. I think this is my 7th year. We have tried to utilize technology to make life easier for those who failed their matric. However, DG, I think there's a challenge in terms of the capacity of your examination centers. Let me allude to you. There are second chance centers who are not examination centers. There are learners who go after failing matric to second chance centers, and they are told that there's no space for them to write their exams. And that sort of like prolong their stay without this matric. And it's a ticking bomb, DG. I think we need to address it. Where I've worked along, I think in the Eastern Cape in Gauteng, I think that's where the real problem exists. Because in the main, these centers belong to the DHEAD sector, but most of the time, the DHEAD sector does not have the capacity in terms of the building infrastructure. It does not have the capacity in terms of tables, chairs, and desks to accommodate the influx of learners that are coming to rewrite their matric. So as I live here, I know, DG, that I'm going to be met with a lot of young people who cannot rewrite their matric simply because there's no capacity in the examination centers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Important point. As we celebrate our successes, what about those that did not meet the mark? And how do we address that challenge? We'll take one more hand, and then we'll give the DG an opportunity to respond. I see a hand in the center row. Can we get a mic?
Good afternoon. My name is Patricia Stock, the CEO of the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, SAICA. DG, thank you for your comprehensive presentation. And firstly, congratulations for the 80%, what I call the 80% flip in the functionality of the schools, which is something to be celebrated. I've got two questions, which are questions of concern. Number one, it's in relation to the boy child. I'm pro-transformation and inclusion, and obviously addressing the challenges that we had with respect to empowerment of women. However, my question is, are we empowering a girl child at the expense of disempowering a boy child? It's from a concern of a boy child, especially understanding our social challenges that we are faced with. And secondly, I'm really concerned about accounting performance in other areas. When I look at the STEAM subjects, I remove the T, and with the SEAM subjects that are remaining, we see a consistent decline. However, with accounting, in the last 3 years, we've seen a downward trend with respect to the number of enrollments. Without knowing what the outcome is for the current year pass rates, what are the root causes that contribute to that decline, so that we can ensure that we put our efforts together, in addition to what we're doing around mathematics? What is it that we need to do to ensure that that trend actually moves upward? I thank you.
Thank you, CEO. I think these are important pointers which our DG has taken note of. And in the next 3 minutes, I'm going to ask our DG to respond. Over to you, DG.
Was the CEO of, I'm not sure which institution, I didn't hear that. Okay. Thank you very much, Program Director. I want to thank all the speakers for reciprocating the technical report. I do know that even those who have not made any input, it doesn't mean that they've not reciprocated the technical report. Let me start with the last speaker, the CEO of SAICA. SAICA is our very important partner, and they're doing quite a lot of work in schools with districts and provinces. I fully agree with you. Empowering the girl child must not be at the expense of the boy child. We need to maintain that balance, and we're trying to engender that in the system, and I think results are going to show later. Remember, in the past, we used to have Girl Learner Intervention Program, CLIP, and we had nothing for boys. But now we've brought in some support for boys to make sure that we maintain that balance between boys and girls. Otherwise, we are going to have a lopsided society where girl learners are leading and performing and boy learners are creating problems for society. So I fully agree with you. Performance around accounting and maths, it's an area that we are together working in as well. We have a maths and science strategy in place, but we believe that we need to start from the bottom, from the foundation phase, and build up the momentum. When we get to grade 12, it should be a process of having started right from the foundation phase, going through the intermediate phase, senior phase, and then proceed to the exit level of the system. And we've met with experts, they are working on that. One of the factors that's going to contribute in improving performance, even in those subjects, is the issue of mother tongue bilingual-based education. It is a fact. The body of science for all over the world, from year to year, indicates that we need to address the issue of the language of learning versus the language that is spoken in the homes of these learners. And I think over time it's going to contribute a lot, also improving performance there. And then the colleague who talked about the second chance metric program, I fully agree with you. I'm somewhat pleased with the improvement of subjects for part-time candidates, but I think we can do better than we have performed. And I fully agree with you. For those who have not made it, who have not met the requirements of the National Senior Certificate, so that we reduce the numbers of those who are not in employment nor in education and training, the second chance metric program is our strategy to support our young men and young women to make sure that they meet the requirements of the National Senior Certificate. It's about resourcing those centers, but it's about also making sure that we invest even better and we make them even more viable and accessible to the young men and young women of our country. And to Professor Khoza, thank you very much. Somebody, when we met this morning, reminded me that a few days ago, I said we are naked but not ashamed. We are the only sector. When we reopen our schools, we open for public representatives to get into our schools and helped to authenticate our state of readiness. We are the only sector that present a report like this and say, this is how we have performed. These are the areas of improvement, and these are the areas of weaknesses which we must address. And that helps to strengthen accountability, not only amongst ourselves, but accountability to the nation, to the taxpayers, because we serve at the behest of the taxpayers of our country. We render public service, and taxpayers are funding our salaries. We have to continue to account to them. And I forgot to mention, Dr. Polia, that in the presentation, we decided to use the theme of the protea flower, and I'm sure we know all the important attributes about the protea flower. We started saying we are a system on the rise, and we also went on to say we have identified green shoots. There are areas in the system that are improving, but there's still a lot to be done. In excellence, you never reach a point where you say you have arrived. And excellence is sweeter than honey. Once you taste it, you want to have more of it. Thank you very much for your inputs.
Thank you, DG. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have for comments and inputs. But let me conclude by thanking you for being such an attentive audience. Thank you for your support. And I think the message is clear, and Professor Gordon Koza has summed it up absolutely accurately. We are a maturing system, but despite the maturity, there are still areas that require our collective effort and input so that we can take our country and we can take our nation to the next level. So let's put our hands together once again for our DG, not only for the presentation, but for his astute and excellent and exemplary leadership in the sector. DG, we appreciate what you do, and thank you very much for all that you continue to do and the sacrifices in terms of putting your own life on the line so that education could see an improvement and we could get to the next level. Let's put our hands together for our Director General, Mr. Matanzima Mweli. I'm now going to hand you over to our Chief Communicator, Mr. Elijah Mslanga, and he's going to tell us about the arrangements for the rest of this evening's proceedings. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mine is to release you for now until we come back for the 6 o'clock. But we are going to be doing things differently this time. I'm sure you saw, those who have been with us for several years, you might have noticed that access control is slightly different. We will be closing the door at 5 minutes to 6 o'clock to make sure that we limit movement inside the auditorium. We are getting messages that some people are still arriving, they're still registering now, which means they missed all the 116 slides of the DG. So since you enjoyed those slides, we are going to ask that you enjoy a musical break, stretch, and get ready for 6 o'clock. So we ask that you come back as soon as possible. If you are seated by 10 to, we will really appreciate that, because at 5 minutes to 6 o'clock, we'll be closing the door so that we are able to start on time. We have made arrangements with all our broadcasters who have respected us and are here. They were even taking the technical briefing live. They will be doing so as well with the 6 o'clock event, and the agreement is that we start on top of the hour, because at exactly that hour, that's when they're starting their 6 o'clock bulletins as well. So we want to continue to have a very good working relationship with them. That's why we're here to plead with everyone who is here to call who has not arrived as yet and convey this message that we are going to be strict, that you may find yourself outside the auditorium if you come after 5 to the hour. Thank you very much.